Imagine if I did gears all day. I would make a pegboard, essentially, that had all of my shims pre-sorted on dowels that stick out from the wall, so I can just grab.
I hate it when I can't blame anybody else.
Yeah, probably a good idea.
Quick tip, we are installing this RD35, which is the old style Dana 60 ARB locker. We have now pressed the bearing onto our locker, fully seated here on the non-ring gear side, where the grooves are in the seal for the air coupler. Little tip for anybody else who's following in our footsteps here. This uses a non-standard bearing in this application. The reason it uses this non-standard bearing is to make these two grooves that you just saw a minute ago visible. If you come down here and look at this, here on the deck, we have the race for the non-standard bearing and the race for the standard Dana 60 bearing side by side. You can see this is actually quite a bit thinner. The reason for this is that when you put the race on, and we have the full stack of the bearing, and then you proceed to put the air coupler on it, we end up with something that is roughly flush. And you can see where the grooves are for the O-rings that will engage. You can also see in the coupler we have this recess to accommodate the cage on the bearing. So for this version of this locker, making sure that you've got that correct bearing so that all of this stuff is going to fit together correctly is critical.
It's not just the race.
And it's the race and the bearing. The bearing itself is thinner as well. Let's see if we can illustrate this. Kind of side by side again. The standard Dana 60 bearing is wider or is thicker. And so if you put this on the old style ARB, it's not going to fit right, it's not going to go together right, it's not going to work right.
Yeah. Now, the install kit that came with this locker originally had one of these bearings.
Probably had the correct bearing.
And it's a Timken, what was it, a 387A, 382A?
Yes, 387A, 382A bearing combination.
Yeah.
And ARB does provide that interchange information for you.
But yeah, this is a used differential, and the bearing that came with it was already pressed on, and we took it off because why not replace bearings?
Right. So now we continue on.
So if you remember from the last video in this playlist, they are taking the rear axle from this red Dodge and putting it onto this M715 with a thorough rebuild. We ended that video as a part 1, where they are finishing up running some patterns on their new gear sets. We joined them, continuing to run patterns and make decisions.
After 4 or 5 or 6 test fits, we're essentially back to the original pattern on this one, and we're going to call this as good as it gets with this particular housing and this particular gear setup. Essentially putting it right back where it was with the previous carrier, and now we're going to pull it out, clean it up, drill and tap a hole for the ARB fitting, and should be a final assembly. You need to drill the hole for the ARB fitting. We've kind of measured it. There's a lug and a lip. Picked our place. hit the center punch, and cutting fluid.
And you'll notice that the differential is pointing pinion up, open side down. That way all the shavings, when they come through, will just drop right out and we won't have any shavings inside the housing.
It's making it. It's working on it.
A bit maybe slightly dull.
Maybe a slightly dull bit. It's also the first hole, which is always a little bit.
Yeah. Swap out for a bigger bit. Grab one that looks sharp.
Yeah, because its size really doesn't matter.
So all we're doing is stepping up the hole a little bit at a time. And
To
if
the
it's a,
final size of 7/16.
yeah.
I think that one was sharper.
Yeah, probably.
And yeah, that is landing right where we wanted it.
Sweet.
And make it big enough to be able to weld it up.
Yeah.
That was a sharp bit.
Yeah, just a little. And then yeah, 7/16 is probably your
Final
next
step.
one. Because it'll just go
It'll suck
through.
itself right through.
Yeah. Now we do want to make sure we deburr the inside. We don't want little flakes breaking off. But we'll do that after we tap.
Yeah, we've got the tap and
Tap
the tap
over
wrench.
here.
Need a tap
I
wrench.
don't have a tap wrench. This is a 1/4 inch NPT, National Pipe Thread. It's 18 threads per inch. Standard, find it at at most stores. And the thing about the pipe thread is that it's tapered, so it's a little wider at the outside than the inside. And the idea is, as you thread the piece in, it kind of wedges itself in and seals a lot better.
Trick to this is just to try to get it started straight.
Yeah, you want to be as straight as you can. You don't have to bottom this one out. In fact, you don't want to.
Yeah, just
Want to make sure it's threaded all the way through.
right. Adequately through for the fitting.
And then I'll zoom in here real quick. Let's look at the tap. You can see this is why you want to do this upside down, because all that gunk needs to fall out, and that's just what's stuck to the tap. There's more. So you want it all
more in the hole.
You want it all to kind of fall out so that you don't have it inside the differential housing, because that's what shreds your bearings
Bearings and gears.
and gears and all that. So
Have something better for that.
Oh, yeah. Something to chamfer the edge of the hole.
Just a bit. It can, as it turns out. Cool. Yeah, that'll knock off the burrs. Okay, so that's all of
That's all the
cleaning.
gunk cleaned out.
So now, pinion preload.
Yep.
So we have our setup bearing on the pinion currently. We need to put the final
Right. Yeah, we need to seat the final bearing.
on the pinion.
Of the, yeah, and then the other one slides on the nut. New races are in.
The races are in.
The new bearings are right there.
Yep. Pinion. Setup bearing. This is ending up being configured with no pinion shims,
Right.
as basically as shallow as we can get it, and our pattern is still suggesting.
Yeah. So,
Yep.
old shim. I don't want to mix these two.
Yeah.
Yeah. This axle is kind of weird in that it might have been machined incorrectly or something, but we have 0 pinion depth shim, and it's still 1 or 2 thousandths too deep. So, yeah. So it's really close. We'd like to try it 1 or 2 thousandths shallower, but we can't because we'd have to machine the case.
We're out of housing.
Yeah.
So. All right.
Okay. New bearing.
New bearing. Press. So, wanting to press the bearing onto the pinion down over here. The challenge of doing this is that we want to press against the inner race, not against the cage, and this is slightly recessed. So if I was just to throw this on the press as it is, end up pressing against some things that I don't want to. Tool piece from a ball joint press set slips
It's
over.
amazing how handy those things are.
Will give me something that can press against that inner race. And with the press adjusted, you just want to seat this tight up against the head of the pinion.
Different sound.
And suddenly feeling very, very solid.
Yep.
So that would be it. Yeah, it's amazing how having a few things like that for things like this makes so much easier. Doing that without it would be
Pain.
a pain. So now on to pinion preload.
Yeah. So the shims go on pinion shaft, and then bearing, which is all lubed up, so I'm not going to touch it, goes in here. And the idea is that you want the nut to compress the bearings together so that you've got good pressure seating the bearings and keeping them in place so they don't wiggle around, but you don't want them so tight that they that you crush the bearings, and so you just adjust the space between the bearings with these shims. And so put the shims on. Slide the pinion through. And of course this is the real bearing, so it doesn't just want to slide on.
Yeah, it's going to have a little bit of a resistance.
Does the nut actually go on?
I think we got about 3 threads.
As long as it's enough to start it.
So all it takes.
So,
So now I can just stand here with this and hold. Yeah, if they're galled a little bit, it's not terrible.
And really the issue here is just that it's a locking nut pinion.
No, you're not getting free.
And so there is resistance for the nut itself coming up on. So now,
Okay. Could be that we are at total compression.
Okay, I think we are, we're solid for sure.
Okay.
And
Oh, here. That's feeling about right.
you think?
It might be a little loose. But there is only one way to check it.
Yeah.
Can you give me a 1/4 to 3/8 to half set of adapters? So we've got our handy little rotational torque wrench. It's kind of hard to see because we got brake clean on it and it fogged up the plastic lens. But the idea is that this will tell you exactly how much force it takes to keep the pinion rotating. This one's nice. It's got a little indicator that will show you what the maximum torque was along the way. So do that. And so you just rotate it around. And yeah, that's way light. 6 inch-pounds.
And spec is 25 to 40, so we need a little less.
A little less shim that'll compress the bearings a little bit tighter together.
So with that, we take it apart. Soft-faced dead blow hammer.
Okay. That's the bearing.
Got the bearing.
Okay. And so these are the original depth shims, and yep. So these are the new ones. And actually, I can see we saved some of the old ones, because you can see there's a little bit of oil wear and gunk on them. So take those over there, and then the kit came with even more. So we have a whole bunch of shims, and so I'm going to sit here for a bit and measure shims. So our total was 49 thousandths.
So we need to be a little bit tighter.
A little bit tighter.
We want to try for like a 470. Replace the 980 with like a 160.
I'd like to step a little bit further than that.
Okay.
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 So,
Try two.
yeah.
That was being difficult.
Too much.
Yeah, I mean, it loosened up a little bit there once I
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
spun it.
Okay. $19.5.
So we probably should.
And what's the spec? 25 to 40?
25 to 40 for a new bearing.
Right.
So that could tighten up a little bit.
Question is, do we go 1 or 2 thousandths?
That
It's
close.
right in the range where it's going to get tight fast.
Right. Well, and I expect we'll probably raise this a little bit just by actually torquing the pinion. So,
Oh, getting it to full
Right.
400 and some foot-pounds of torque.
well, getting it north of 250.
We'll see how far we can get with that.
Just you're drive the Jeep on top of the wrench. Okay. Yeah.
Cheater pipe.
Cheater, big flipping cheater. That's
Yeah. Up there. Yeah.
where that's gonna go. So
Well, we need to disassemble.
we're gonna disassemble. Okay. No shims here.
You sure?
I am sure.
Good, because there's 3 here. 2 of them were stuck together. So last time we were loose, we went 4 thousandths tighter, and we got just shy of spec, and so we went 1 thousandths more. So yeah, we are at the point where we're making 1,000th inch adjustments.
Yeah.
Maybe 6.5. So we blew right past spec, from too loose to too tight in 1,000th increment.
I pulled 160 with the 150. So, the torque spec for the pinion nut on a Dana 80 is 450 to 500 foot-pounds. My torque wrench in the middle of this is currently set at 300. That's 300 foot-pounds. That is 66% of the torque this is supposed to have.
Now, I'm not sure whether they forgot to click record or they just got really busy and forgot about the camera, but the boys did skip some sections here. But look, the center section is in, and Roy is currently torquing the bearing caps down. So they definitely made some progress. They got their pinion load where they wanted it to be. Sorry, pinion preload. And they're working on getting the axle reassembled.
"90 foot-pounds.
One last check on the backlash, and then
Yeah.
we'll run the air cable.
I know, you can't see what they're doing, but they are checking backlash right now.
5.5, 6.
That's in spec. This is all about this neat little baggie of bits. The bulkhead kit. Okay. And then presumably we screw that in here.
Screw that in, yep.
Okay, we're gonna call that probably snug enough.
Okay. And wipe off excess, inside and outside. So, before we get too done, we have a routing guide.
Gently bend the seal housing tube so that it follows the profile shown in figures 12 and 13. So yeah, kind of just vaguely up and over the bearing cap.
I mean, realistically, we could thread a whole bunch through and cut it off with the tubing cutter.
Well, that's kind of what I was wondering, didn't want to do.
Okay.
I mean, I think as long as it's sort of vaguely inside the ring gear there, but okay.
Oh, and this is where we need that Posi Drive number 3 screwdriver.
Yes.
Make sure you get it started right.
Just snug that up.
Yeah, Tighten is all it says.
Okay, give me a pinion spin. Just make sure everything is completely out of the way. Yep. So yeah, the airline is officially out of the way.
All right.
Apply some air pressure. Locker.
Okay. That's here.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
there you go. Now it all moves the same direction.
Yes.
So, locker functions.
Yay! Cool.
Basically throw a gasket on it and a cover and we're done.
Not a sponsor, but we very much like Lube Locker gaskets. Nice thing is that you know that we're not doing this because we're getting paid to do it.
True, true. Occasionally we win stuff.
Well,
It doesn't everybody, right?
And it's the only one that works on math gun. It's Battlecraft. And I think it did. Yeah.
The two plugs.
Oh, yeah. Aha. Just big enough. Yeah, they both have magnets on it. And they're kind of interchangeable. One for the fill, one for the drain.
Okay.
And then we're just going to leave this finger tight because we're going to fill it
I
anyway.
need to fill it anyway, and I don't want to bother putting sealant on that. And since we're going to pull the outers off,
You don't want fluid in for
I
that.
don't want fluid in for that, so that brings us to, for the moment, basically done.
Basically done.
However, taught by somebody else.
Yeah, probably a good idea.